Welcome to the University of Montana, the 4th annual Air Toxins on the Big Sky Science Symposium. Good to see you. We have 2 keynote speakers today. So usually you have 1 keynote speaker for an event like this, but since this is such a big event and it means so much to us and you guys are doing such an excellent job, we have 2 keynote speakers for this year. So we're going to keep them short. This is Dean Forbes. He's the Dean of the College of Health Professions and Biomedical Sciences. He's my boss. And then we have Dr. Royce Engstrom, that's going to, he's the Provost and the VP of Academic Affairs here for the University of Montana. So they're going to say a few words and formally welcome you guys to the University of Montana. So thank you, and I'll turn it over to Dean Forbes.
Thanks, Tony. And we don't want to scare the keynote speakers. Just a few comments we want to make this morning. First, I want to thank all the students and teachers for taking time off from the summer schedule. We finally got some good weather. I'm sure you all would rather be outside today. Lots of things to do. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about the College of Health Professions and Biomedical Sciences. Within our college, we have programs in pharmacy. On a national level, the research of our pharmacy program ranks us in the top 10 in terms of competing for federal research dollars. We also have a physical therapy program, a social work program, and a public health program. What you folks are doing is really monumental and fits right into what we want to do too, because we believe research and education, or research and teaching, are all part of the educational process. They go together. Like many folks are learning more about research at an early age. Also, hidden agenda for us, we are always looking for outstanding students to come to our programs. So we hope someday to see a number of you folks in one of those programs that I just mentioned. And finally, I'd like to, before I introduce my boss, Dr. Engstrom, I'd like to just make a challenge to all of you, and that is this. My generation, previous generations have created a lot of messes. Some of those messes are not very far from here, called Superfund sites. We have problems in healthcare, we have other problems in our environment, we have energy problems, and it's going to be, in my opinion, scientists from your generation that are going to need to figure out how to solve, or at least make major progress in solving those problems. The programs like you're involved with today will give you a major start. So once again, welcome to this part of the university, and this time I'd like to turn the program over to Dr. Royce Engstrom. Dr. Engstrom is a scientist by training, has a degree in analytical chemistry, same place I went to school. We both went to the University of Wisconsin, and Dr. Engstrom came here a year ago, and he's just finishing 1 year as Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs. Royce, welcome.
Good morning. Great to see you all here, even those of you who are just coming in. Good to see you here. It's wonderful to look out at such a powerful research force that we have here today. As Dean Forbes was mentioning, we have so many great opportunities and a number of great problems to solve as well. And it's going to require a very strong research force to do this. Researchers at all levels, starting with folks like yourselves in the high school system, college students, graduate students, and professors, and all kinds of technicians and postdoctoral researchers. This nation and this state and this region of the country needs a strong research force, and you folks are the beginning people in that pipeline of researchers for the future. So congratulations and thanks for putting all the extra work that you have into your projects. I know that these kinds of things take a lot of extra time beyond the classroom, and not every student is able to do that. So thank you for your good work, and we're here to take on involvement in research like this. I want to just tell you 3 quick stories about 3 high school students that I had the pleasure to work with over the years, and just what it helped lead them to. And I'll be very brief about this. First one is a young woman named Jennifer, and she started research in high school. This is back in South Dakota where I used to live, and she was looking for a college or a university that would allow her to get involved in research as a freshman, right out of the bat, right out of the chute. She had had enough research experience as a high school student, like many of you have, that she wanted to continue that research when she came to college. So she came to work in our laboratory as a freshman college student. And I had, you know, several graduate students working on a very nasty problem, a very tricky problem in our laboratory. Well, this high school student, or first year college student, came in, and within 6 weeks, she has solved this very tricky problem, getting this experiment to work that several graduate students couldn't make work. And I think it was her high school research experience that really helped her get a jump start on that. She's gone on to do research at the University of Colorado, the University of Washington, over in Germany, and now she holds a very nice faculty appointment at the University of Utah. Second young man, Bill is his name. He started working in our laboratory in grade 8. He came around, he was a kid from the town and from the local community, and started hanging around in the chemistry lab in grade 8. So we put him to work, and by high school he was doing some pretty impressive experiments himself. He went on to go to college at Grinnell in Iowa and graduate school at Caltech in California, and now currently works for one of the huge pharmaceutical firms in the Research Triangle in North Carolina. And it was his inquisitiveness as a middle school student and a high school student that got him started. The last one is a fellow named Paul. He started doing research in high school as well, started coming to the laboratory as a junior in high school, and did research. He turned out not to go into science and not to go into chemistry. He decided after a couple of years of doing research, what his talents were really were in the field of business. So now he's got a career leading one of the information technology companies in their European enterprise, and so he jet sets all around the world out of Europe. But his research skills, even though he doesn't put them to use in a technical sense today, helped him develop a real approach to problem solving and a real curiosity about how things work in the world, that it led him down a very different career path, but one that he's making a wonderful contribution. So the point is that the research that you're involved in today can lead to many different things, open many different doors for you. And regardless of whether you become a research scientist or not, that's not the point. The things you're learning by doing research teach you problem-solving skills, communication skills that you're going to practice today as you demonstrate your posters and so on. And it just builds in you an inquisitiveness and a curiosity that will serve you well no matter what you go into. So thanks for your work and your involvement. Let me just say quickly thanks to the people who have put this event together. I won't mention them by name because there's so many folks involved, but it takes quite an effort to put on something like this. And I want to thank all of you from UM and from surrounding schools that have taken part in it. Especially thanks to the teachers and the parents that have helped support your students as you've done the project. Have a great day. Thanks.
Thanks, Dean Ford and Toxins. Now we're going to have a little bit of fun. The original intent of this next presentation was to show where the program came from and where we're at now and hopefully where we hope to go next. So Mr. Jason McVeigh, who works for us as an undergraduate, is, besides his mom making the most awesome meatballs you've ever had in your entire life, he's pretty savvy with Google Earth. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to restart here because that was actually. So we're going to go through this, and it's a little 3-minute presentation, and it's going to show the different airsheds that are participating in the program this year. So this is Google Earth. I don't know if you guys have played around with this, but this is actually a pretty awesome program. And just to give you an idea of the expanse of the program that we are right now. Here we are here at the University of Montana. We have the folks in Corvallis down here. Here's our partners in Lapway, Kamei, Idaho, and the Nez Perce Reservation. And then here's Libby and Whitefish, way up to the north. And we're going to do this little video. Right there. All right, so here we go. So we started the program in 2003, 2004 in Missoula, Montana. And the program actually started with one chemistry student, a junior student at Big Sky High School, named Isaac Schmidt. And so he sampled in 16 of his classmates' homes. And then the next year, we expanded inside the Big Sky. We also took on Hellgate High School. So that was the winter of 2004, 2005. We also brought on Corvallis High School, 60 miles to 45 miles south of Missoula. So that's in the Bitterroot Valley, or Valley County, home of Corvallis High School. And you can probably see your house there. We originally worked with Mr. Jim Striegel, who was the chemistry teacher out there 2 or 3 years ago. And then Mr. Hamill took on the reins of the project last year. So in 2005, 2006, we continued working with Big Sky, Hellgate, and Corvallis. This past year, we added the Distance Learning Center. It's a satellite campus of the Northwest Indian College in Kamei, Idaho. So if you just go up Lolo Pass and keep driving for about 100 miles, that's where Kamei is. Beautiful spot. So Kamei High School also participated in the program this year, as did Lapway High School. Lapway is, what, about an hour or so from Kamei, give or take? And Lapway High School has participated in the program doing air toxics this year. Lapway is a beautiful little spot itself. Lapway is a population of 1,134 folks as of the 2000 census. And it's also the seat of government of the Nez Perce Indian Reservation. So this past year, 2007, 2008, we also added Whitefish and Libby. So that's Libby, right? It's part of the Kootenai Valley. So Libby is, we're working with a great teacher there, Mr. Gene Reckon, and he's making things happen for us, and we really appreciate his effort and the effort of the students and participating in the program. Libby, 2,626 folks as of the census of 2000. So they're doing PM 2.5 sampling, as is Mr. Todd Spangler and Whitefish, PM 2.5 sampling. And I think you have, what, 11 students this year that participated in the program, and hopefully we can double or triple that for the upcoming year. So PM 2.5 sampling and Whitefish. The pictures kind of don't do the justice, but that's a beautiful shot right there. So just to recap, you know, we started out with one student in the winter of the school semester of 2003, 2004. With one high school, he sampled in 16 of his classmates. And then 5 years later, we're up to nearly 200 students from 7 other high schools, plus a private college, 2 different states, Montana and Idaho. So the future of the program, we're going to Alaska next year. We have 3 sites in Alaska, 2 tribal villages. One's in southeast Alaska in Ketchikan. It's going to be a hub village. And the dust track will rotate around these smaller villages. They're going to do PM 2.5 sampling in Homey Woodstone. And also around Tok, Alaska. And there's a little town called Tanacross. And it was minus 73 degrees Fahrenheit there this past winter, so we'll be packing warmly if we go up there. And then the other town is just north of Anchorage. So I guess my point is we've really expanded the program, but it's with the help of folks like you. You look around, this room is pretty packed this year. And you guys are doing some amazing stuff, and we sincerely appreciate your effort and the things that you are doing. So Jason McVeigh, I think this is a pretty awesome job. So let's give Jason a Okay, so you guys have done some pretty amazing things, like I just said. So these are just a couple slides of some key findings over the last couple of years. This is the 4th annual symposium. These are findings from the past 3 years. So air toxics, the original focus of the program was on air toxics. One of the major findings of the students was that if you sample inside your home and then directly outside your home, no matter where you are, in hundreds of homes that we've sampled in, the air toxics concentrations are 7 times higher on average inside the home compared to directly outside the home. That's a problem if we spend the majority of our time inside, right? So this finding right here has been a major finding for our personal research and has opened up a lot of doors for us. And again, it's based on the work that you guys are helping us collect. So this is another finding. We switched the dust tracks, PM 2.5. We all know what the dust tracks are, right? Most of you guys do. So we're sampling with dust tracks, particulate matter. This is wood smoke particles that are in the air within these homes. And the sheer magnitude of the concentrations of these particles has been an eye-opener for us as researchers here at the University of Montana. Does anybody remember from the very first time I came to the classroom and I told you what the annual or the 24-hour standard is for PM 2.5? Does anybody remember that? I hear mumbling. 35 micrograms per cubic meter. Remember that? So 35 is way down here, right? So the average in this home is 132 micrograms per cubic meter. So this is pretty typical of what we see in these homes with wood stoves. So this is, again, if you spend the majority of your time inside and you have high levels of air pollution inside, how does that impact the asthmatics or your respiratory health or your cardiovascular health? So this, again, is a major finding that you guys have helped us look at. It's also helped us look at identifying spikes in the data that we see. This is a typical graph of a wood stove. This is what happens when you load your wood stove in your home if you have a wood stove. This is what happens when you fry a piece of bacon or you burn a piece of toast. You get a nice spike right there. Cleaning, tell this to your parents, there's a reason why I don't clean my room. Because if you vacuum or you dust it, we get a spike of air pollution. We certainly don't want that. Again, frying, this is a lady that fried her bacon early in the morning one day. And again, sweeping, you get a nice peak. Incense, burning of incense and burning of candles, you get pretty good sorts of air pollution within your home. So, today, what are you guys going to tell us? And that's where you guys come in. It's going to be an action-packed morning, okay? So we have 10 presentations coming up. We have a short break, and then we're going to follow up with 11 presentations. And some of the groups, we need to upload some of the slides, so to be honest with you, we're kind of winging it on this. So we have a schedule that we're going to try to stick to, but we're trying to be, it's a fluid situation. So then we're going to have a nice lunch. We're going to come back in, we're going to do evaluations for 5 minutes. It's very important to do these evaluations because it gives us feedback on ways to improve the program. What works for you, what doesn't work for you? What would you like to see for next year when we have more schools, additional states in Alaska coming in? So any feedback that you give would be fantastic for us. Then the fun part, we do awards, okay? And then there's a health fair, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So the way we're going to do the presentation schedule, we have random drawings. Each presentation will be 5 minutes, right? We all know that. 5-minute presentation. The lights will be at 50% during that time. We'll have 1-minute question and answer session. After 5 minutes, the lights will come on. And Earl is the light ranger. And bad things happen if the presentations go past 5 minutes. And I'm not sure what the plan is, but hopefully we want to find out. The 5-minute presentation, 1 minute per question and answer. You will be evaluated on these projects, on your presentation. Okay? So the best presentation, first school gets a $150 gift certificate. That's pretty cool, right? Best overall presentation for the entire symposium gets a $200 gift certificate to you and Bill Story. Buy a lot of swag for $250, right? Quiz material, all sorts of stuff. We also have a poster session that's ongoing right now. And I think there's 18 or so posters that were set up. And we have the poster judges over there right now that are evaluating the posters. The top 3 will get $75 gift certificate for your poster. Now, we have a celebrity judging panel. Not just a judging panel, we have a celebrity judging panel. Okay, and we're blessed to have these folks with us today. The first is somebody I know pretty well. When I came to graduate school here in 1997, he was my advisor and my mentor. So Dr. Garen Smith. Dr. Garen Smith, his alter ego is Garen the Wizard. And you may know him better as Gee Whiz. You see him with the top hat right there. Gee Whiz travels all over the state of Montana doing magic shows. And how many people have seen the Gee Whiz magic show presentation? That's pretty good. That's great. Okay, so Gee Whiz, chemistry professor, is going to be one of our celebrity judges. We also have Russ Thomas, who is an old friend of the program. He's one of the original celebrity judges. So Russ Thomas is the weather guy at PPAC. Well done on the weather today. Thomas, I think this is his third year, one of the original judges. He's on the mornings now, so if you haven't seen him in a while, you have to wake up early enough to catch him in the morning. So thanks again, Russ, for being part of the program. So this next guy is pretty good at what he does. So Mr. Eric Burgess. So Eric, this is the second year of the program. So I had to kick, announcing some of the credentials last year. Had some fun with it, but so for those of you who may not know, Eric's Olympic gold medalist freestyle aerialist skier, three-time Olympian. It's pretty cool. My thanks for fame knowing Mr. Burgess here. He's won silver at the 97 Worlds, gold in the 1998 Nagano Olympics and 99 World Championship, 2002 overall freestyle World Cup champion, a two-time World Cup aerialist champ in 2001 and 2002, 15 World Cup victories to his credit. That's cool, right? So, Mr. Burgess, thanks again for coming to be a celebrity judge this year. So we didn't scare him off last year, so I guess it wasn't so bad last year. So the next couple of guys are new to the program, but we're very familiar with who they are. So Ian Marquand, he's, I guess, the Uber reporter. I don't know what the title would be. So the A-team reporter. He works for KPAC, the CBS affiliate here in Missoula. So anytime there's a really cool story, a documentary or something, you can bet that Mr. Marquand's involved with it. So he's the special projects coordinator for KPAC. He's an alum of the University of Montana, the School of Journalism, and he's been Montana's TV broadcaster of the year 3 times and won numerous other awards, too many to list, so thanks for being part of the program this year. And last but certainly not least is Mr. Coach Robin Selvig. He's the icon of the University of Montana, probably the most famous grizz there is. And this past season, 2007-2008, marked Coach Selvig's 30th year as head coach of the Lady Grizz. Congratulations with that. And pretty good record over the past 30 years. 697 wins, 198 losses, which ranks him among the top 10 winningest active D1 women's basketball coaches. And this is pretty cool also. So, Coach Lady Grizz at 21 national tournament appearances, 16 NCAA tournaments, and 21 regular season conference titles. So, Coach Selvig, welcome to the program. So let's give our celebrity judges a round. It's okay to suck up to them because they're going to be evaluating your project. Okay. So I tried to think of something clever to say at this time. Let's roll. It's go time. That's about as good as I can go. So we have a listing of the presentation. So the first one up. So what I'm going to do, this is a listing of the first couple of presentations. So like I said, this is a fluid situation. So I think basic Hellgate, the first 4 valves, flat wave, whitefish, the first 5, that's the proper order. So note where you are in the schedule, okay? This is the presentation schedule that we're going to keep. And then for valves, we need to bump that to the end, the second part of the break, but we'll deal with that. Don't you worry about it. We'll score you away. We'll let you know who's going to be next once we get to pass number 5. So the first presentation is going to be Big Sky High School. So these folks come on down. Nancy, did I miss anything?
Are you ready? Whoa. Good morning. We're from Big Sky High School, as they said. Our chem teacher is Mr. David Jones. I'm Sarah Filzer. This is Caitlin Brendel, Carrie Moyer, Brant Mueller, and Matt Weber. Our project was a comparison between house age and the amount of particulate matter. Go ahead. So our question, obviously, is the age of the house a factor in the amount of particulate matter present? So our hypothesis was a new house would have more particulate matter because of the remnants of building material particulate. So what we did is we took test houses varying in age, and we tested them for a 24-hour period. The houses used, they were built in 1975, 1978, 83, 94, and then a brand new house, 2007. We placed the dust tract in a house that had about the same amount of traffic, room traffic, so there wasn't as many variables. And here are some of our results.
Okay, so this is the first house we tested, and it was the brand new house. It was just built. We just moved into December. So, and this, if you want to push that. So right here is, it was in my bedroom, and I get up at the same exact time every morning. So there's the peak from me getting ready, and then just throughout the day. Probably about the little peaks, 12 to 3 p.m., there's daycare. So probably the daycare kids taking the nap in my room, going in and going back out. So.
All right. So in this one, it was in my room. The first bike there possibly explained the instrument. I did have it kind of contained in a corner in my room, but that was the only place that there was so little traffic and stuff. And it was low to the floor, so the littler peaks could be heating system turned on.
Alright, so this was my house. We placed it in my living room. There was only 2 of us that ever went in and out of it, so there wasn't a whole lot of traffic. And the only peaks that we could find were the smaller ones, which are my heater, which those, at the exact times our heater is programmed to turn on and off during the day. And then the larger one, of course, is when we made dinner in the evening, so there wasn't a whole lot of activity in my house.
So overall, the maximums for the older houses were greater than the ones of the newer houses. So in a generalization, the results supported our hypothesis that the newer houses had more particulate matter than the older houses, except for the specifics for the 2007 house and then the 94 house. The 94 house was a little bit higher, but they were kind of about the same. So we'd have to do more research to do more houses of the similar age to see if it really does support our hypothesis.
So,
Okay, so as I said again, the older houses had a less particulate matter than the newer houses. And so we want to try and do more research to try and test more houses, because the 80 houses, we tested them, but the dust tracks kind of had difficulties and it didn't totally work, so we didn't get the data for those ones. So hopefully we can get data from those houses and compare them to the newer houses so we can have a bigger age difference between them. And that's our project. Thank you.
Can you tell me again, why is it you thought the newer houses would show more particular than the older?
So the question is why we thought our hypothesis was that the newer houses would contain more particulate matter than the older houses. And we thought because of remnants from building material, especially with the newest house that was built in 2007, that there would be more remnants left from the particulate matter in the building material.
Because it was built more recently, there'd be more
Yes.
dust or whatever still kind of floating around?
Yes.
Did you pay attention to what kind of heating system was involved in these houses? Was it all forced air heat, or were some of them wood stoves?
It was all forced air heat, actually. There weren't any wood stoves in any of our houses.
And did you do any work to ask residents or ask yourselves how often the furnace filters are serviced? I wonder if a filter in the forced air system and the duct might make a difference.
Yeah, that could be. We didn't actually think of that. That's something that we could continue on in the future if we were going to continue this project, check it and stuff. So
You could either do a before and after.
Yeah.
Just check it where it is and then do
And then
a
check it.
round of maintenance on your furnace and check it out.
yeah, that'd be interesting to see how it changed the results, if it did or anything. More questions?
Another quick question. Did anybody use aerosol hairspray or deodorants and see if that showed up on the instrument?
That's part of what we think the largest peak for the 2007 house, because it was in her bedroom and that's where she gets ready, and so she'll use hairspray and stuff. So that might have affected the averages or the maximums, so. Any other questions?
Well, let me follow up on Karen's. If you've got monitors in different rooms in different houses, how do you think that might affect your experiment and your results?
Yeah, and that's why we tried to make it so the rooms would have the same amount of traffic, which is why they had 2 in their bedrooms where it would just have been them. And the living room, as Brant said, didn't have that much traffic, so we tried to make it about the same, but in any case, you know, you can't have it be exactly the same since the houses are all different, so.
High school, the effects of animals. Gregerson, Grund, and Nickerson.
Hello. Okay, sorry. All right, hi, I'm Kirsten Grund,
I'm Brian Nickerson.
And I'm Lakeisha Gregerson.
and we're all here for Hellgate High School, and we decided to do the effect of animals for our presentation. Our problem was, how does the presence of animals affect the quality of air? And our hypothesis was there will be a higher amount of particulate matter in houses that have more animals. Why we chose this, the animal for our test is, in class we've learned that we spend most times indoors, as we just learned 7 times more particulate matter is in the house than outdoors. So we thought it'd be interesting to throw on the effect of what animals have a part in that. And I'm going to turn it over to Brian.
All right, so we had houses with 0 pets, 1 pet, 2 pets, and more than 2 pets. And, oops, wrong way. Okay, so our 0 pet house with 0 animals, there were spikes, and it went all the way up almost to 0.5 p.m. And we have no idea what those spikes were, but as you can see in the graph, most of it was below 0.05. And then for the house with 1 animal, the spikes went up to 0.035, which is way less than the house with 0. And it was mainly between 0.005 and 0.015, which is lower than the 0 house. So it's not what we expected to find. And then the 2 animal house was, most of the information was between 0.002 and 0.112, which also was not what we expected. We expected it to be higher than what we found in the house with 0 animals and the house with 1 animal. And then more than 2 animals was a little bit higher than the other 2 and more what we expected. And it was mainly between 0.01 and 0.035 that we found. And these are all the graphs that are, so you can see the comparison. And then this is the graph of all of the houses. And the red represents more than 2, and that's a little lower, as you can see, than the other graphs. And the orange also represents more than 2 animals. And the green and blue represent the house with 2 animals. Pink and indigo represent the house with 1 animal, and aqua and maroon represent the house with 0 animals. And this is where I'll turn it over to Lakeisha.
So we studied some of the health effects that animals have on people in their homes. Common things are asthma or allergies from pet dander and such. And that's another one of the reasons why we decided to look at this. We all have pets, and so we figured it would be relevant. And in conclusion, it appeared, well, at least we thought that in the 0 animal homes it would have the lowest particulate matter. But once you added even just 1 pet, it shot up. And even in some of the 0 pet homes, it was really, really low. But 1 to 3, I think, was the highest that we had. It didn't really change that much. So adding 1 more animal or 2 more animals didn't really change it as much as we thought that it would. Some of them were even lower than the lower number houses. So our hypothesis didn't exactly come through as we thought it would. We thought that definitely lower animals would be lower particulate matter, but it didn't turn out that way. So, yeah. Any questions? That's it. There was a variety of animals. In the one animal house, I think you had a cat. And in the two or more animal house, I know one of them was my house, and there was a dog and 2 cats, and then fish. But I don't know if that really changes that much. But it was a wide variety of between cats and dogs mostly.
They were mostly indoors, stayed indoors.
We made sure to put the dust tract in an area where the animals were around a lot, and most of them were animals that were inside a good portion of the day.
Could I see your slide on the 0 pet house again? I was having trouble trying to adjust the y-axis. So that was at 0.5 at the top.
And this graph is actually broken. There's a peak that's higher than this, but we had to make it smaller so you could see the smallest part of the data at the bottom. But it even shoots up higher than that. It's just, there's a break in it.
This is milligrams per cubic meter, so you multiply by 1,000, we get the micrograms.
Right.
So it looks like the 0 animal house had huge spikes compared to the no animal houses. Can you attribute this to heating sources in the house?
A part of this was, since we had such a limited amount of time to do these studies and have the dust track, we only had one, so it was really hard to get the specifics that we wanted for our test. So a lot of the reasons it was sent home was for their heating source, so that probably has something to do with it. We weren't able to as much as we wanted to.
And what's the top of the yellow axis again? Right?
It's 0.05 also. It's the same.
Okay, so we have 4 ballots.
Good morning. All right, I'm Erin McConaughey. This is Whitney Mitchell, Caitlin Fowler, and Corey DePaw. Our test project that we did was how does air quality affect asthma? A research project based on prescription asthma medications. And what we did was we gathered information from the Hamilton hourly air quality data for PM2, PM2.5, and we decided to compare it against albuterol inhaler amounts that different pharmacies around the Bitterroot Valley have sold.
All right. Just a little about asthma. Most of you have probably heard of it before, but it's a long-term disease that it's usually is due to inflammation in the throat or a constriction of the throat, or sometimes it's just extra mucus, which is kind of disgusting. But it makes it hard for the person to breathe, and usually you start coughing or wheezing, and that's called an attack. When that happens, it's usually from over stress on your lungs, like when you're out running or things like that. And all right, medications, asthma medications. There's rescue medications, which bronchodilator, it opens up the airways. A long-term control medication would just prevent the symptoms from occurring. And then we're doing it on fast-acting medications, more specifically albuterol, which is a fast-acting medication for just acute asthma symptoms. Usually when you have an attack, it's just an inhaler. And so when you're looking at the graphs, it's albuterol that's being sold. So.
All right, so what we've done is we tested the outside air quality. If you can see these ones, the red is the high of each month, right here, you can see that, and then the blue is the low, and as you can tell, August was really majorly high. and this was August 2007. It goes from May 2007 to April 2008. And then we tested these 4 pharmacies. 3 of them are in Hamilton. 1 of them is in Corvallis, which is 6 miles away from Hamilton. As you can tell, there's a spike in August here in Corvallis, and there's some spikes here, and this we will explain more later when we get to the errors, but this has more to do with the late flu season. Okay, and this is a comparison. So as you can see, this is the average number of air qualities sold, and this is the air quality averages themselves, like of what the air was. And so we have August was spiked, and as you can see, this is the highest one too for the number of inhalers sold.
So basically, we concluded that the outside air quality is directly in effect with the number of inhalers sold. And then just some possible errors. Right now, they're planning on phasing out the albuterol inhaler, so the replacement is more expensive, so people are trying to stock up to save money. The flu season this year, I don't know about everywhere else, it came a little late in the Bitterroot Valley, so a lot of people buy their inhalers during flu season because people with asthma are greatly affected by that. And then the population is fluctuating. And then the outside air also picks up pollen and smoke during the fire season, which was August. So, thank you very much.
Any questions?
Did you consider trying to get any data on the number of people that visited physicians or hospitals because of acute asthma?
We thought about that, but we figured it might be better to do the actual medication, because sometimes even if they have need to be treated for the asthma, they might be prescribed the other medications, like as you could see, the ones that are for longer illnesses that can actually prevent and stop the asthma symptoms. So we figured it would be better to do the medication that was the acute symptoms.
And these are all prescription?
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So we have Lapwai High School, air toxics in the Lapwai Valley.
My name is Nigel Williamson, and I probably note that Stephanie Keller is on there. She's not here. She'd rather concentrate on other things than this. And my teacher is Mr. Paul Smith, and I am from Lapwai High School. Our question was, do solvents affect the levels of chloroform more inside or outside? Our hypothesis was that solvents will have a greater effect on the chloroform levels in the air inside rather than outside. We used a SKA personal air sampler. It's like an air pump, and we had our point students, which was Stephanie was one of them. They used a BIOS Direct-Cal to calibrate the airflow to figure out like the chloroform levels and many other different VOCs, volatile organic compounds. And we sent the tubes here to the University of Montana for analysis to get our data back and figure out if our air is bad or not. And you'll note that this one is really, really high on the inside, but on the outdoor ones, all of them are, pretty much even, except for that one, which was my house, because I have a very clean house. You'll note that this one is high. We did a questionnaire based upon what do you have near your house, and we asked if they had paint thinners, or it turns out this man's stepfather was actually like a painter, painted cars and all kinds of different things. Paint thinners will really affect the chloroform levels because it possibly contains it. Home 3 and 5 had higher chloroform levels inside rather than outside, which it probably would because outside air thins out and it circulates. From surveys, these homes had paint thinners in which contained chloroform. All outside concentrations were similar in numbers, but they were all picked out in different places. Like my house is way out in the woods, and some of those houses were based upon town, so maybe there could have been. In conclusion, we found out that the outside air has less chloroform than the inside air, which would make sense because, I don't know, unless you have a pool near your house, it'd just not be affected. Houses that stored solvents inside had way higher levels of chloroform, possibly because they have chemicals that contain chloroform, or possibly paint their house a lot.
What made you guys want to look at chloroform?
It's very interesting because that's what they use to knock out animals. And it's very bad for your system. They actually found out it could be a carcinogen, which is a cancer causer. So I guess it wouldn't really be that good to have a lot of that in the air. Yes, sir.
What sort of questions did you ask besides the presence of paint thinners about things that might be chloroform?
Well, we wasn't necessarily looking for chloroform. There are actually many different. We were looking for volatile organic compounds, which is many things like benzene, all different types of chemicals. And on the questionnaire, it asked if we had, if we used aerosols a lot, if our house had been recently painted, if we had just added on to it, various questions that could actually affect our air quality.
And so with chloroform, I might be, if we wanted to go back and look, I might also look for use of leaches in the house and swimming pools. I don't know if this was during the winter. Also, your local water treatment plants could be a source of chloroform too, so that might be interesting material to look at.
But when we were searching in the water category, because we also knew that chloroform could be in water, we actually found out that it thins out when you boil it. So most of the time when you're cooking, it'll just thin out, and it takes a lot of chloroform to be very bad for you, to what point it knocks you out or develops cancer, and you'd have to be around it all the time. So you'd have to swim like every day to get cancer. Okay.
So Stephanie Keller's brother has actually been working with us also all for the past 2 semesters at the University of Montana. So Stephanie was the other person, one of the point students at Lapway High School. So now we have Whitefish High School 3M air filtration study. So the next one that's going to be up is Hellgate High School filtration capabilities of the 3M Filtrete, Skyrood, Schultz, Maurer, and Normal.
All right, so we did a 3M air filtration study. I'm Shane Dunluck. This is Justin Rubalcaba, and unfortunately Stephanie Kellner couldn't be here because of prior engagements. We're from the Whitefish High School, Mr. Spangler's chemistry class. So this study was done to observe the effects of 3M air filtration units on PM 2.5s in homes with wood stoves, and we had limited time, so we got limited data. So the results were kind of inaccurate and difficult to make valid conclusions. Our hypothesis was that a standalone 3M air filtration unit will reduce indoor levels of PM 2.5 in homes with wood stoves by at least 50%. We used the DustTrack PM 2.5 aerosol monitor and a standalone 3M air filtration unit to do this study. And as far as the procedure went, we tested in homes on a two-day period in either homes with wood stoves or homes without. The first day we tested, we had just the aerosol monitor going, and the second day we tested with the aerosol monitor going and the air filter.
These graphs show the averages of homes with wood stoves. The first day is the blue without the air filter, and the second is the magenta with the air filter. As you can see, there's a general trend of reduced PM 2.5 in homes without wood stoves. In a few cases, in 1 and 2 there, you can see that it's higher, but generally, as with the other ones, it was lower. This graph shows the maximums, and as you can see in house number 2, there was an extreme spike. It was actually up to almost 2.5, which is a lot. And so that had probably a lot to do with the averages for that day being skewed slightly. But as you can see in the rest of the days, it's kind of the same thing. The air filter reduced it in some cases, and it was the same in 6, but higher in the others. This graph shows a side-by-side comparison over the 2 days. The blue line is with no air filter, and the pink is with an air filter. As you can see, the spikes here correlate to activities in the home, and it does show higher, but we just randomly selected a data set from our thing to keep the study objective. So this shows homes with wood stoves. We were comparing homes with and without. So again, you can see a general trend in all the homes except for number 4 here. The air filter reduced PM 2.5 quite a bit. However, in 4 it was higher. This graph shows the maximums, and you see the same sort of trend. And this is another side-by-side comparison. As you can see, the air filter again is higher, but we again just randomly selected a home. This spike here correlates to right here is loading and stoking the fire. So our results, besides the outlier of the really high maximum, it shows a general trend of lowered PM 2.5 in homes without wood stoves, which is to be expected because PM 2.5 comes from wood smoke. However, with our limited data, we couldn't really find a correlation between using the 3M filters and lowered PM 2.5. But this, like I said, the sample is far too small to definitively prove or disprove any effects. The data, however, did show a general trend of lower PM 2.5 with the air filter, but longer testing periods in a single home and a lot larger sample is needed to reach accurate conclusions. And we'd like to thank Tony Ward, 3M, Plum Creek for donating the money to get the DustTrack, and everyone who participated in the study. And these are the works we used. Thank you.
So that one big spike that was opening up the whistle? Yeah, it was from the whistle. So yeah, you can definitely tell that there is higher all the way up to like 500 micrograms per meter. And the standard is 135.
So, if I understood the first round of graphs, the homes with no wood stove, you actually recorded more particulate using the filter than without the filter?
Yeah, and it was across 2 days, and we try to have people do similar activities in the home, but it's kind of uncontrolled. So that's why we were saying that we needed a lot larger sample size to really reach accurate conclusions.
Based on that small sample, it almost sounds the filter is contributing more
Yeah.
than
And
it's taking out.
the comparison graphs that we have are kind of skewed there a little bit because most, in the averages, generally it was lower, but the graphs we picked were just randomly selected from our data set, so.
What was the relationship between where the filter was and where you had your test practice?
We tried to separate them across the room. The filter is designed for 170 square feet. So we tried to separate put like the dust track on one end of the room and the air filter on the other so that it wasn't directly, affecting the air filter. So, but yeah, that's
Something you might want to think about for future study is just look to see if there are any prevalent drafts that move air through the house in any particular direction. Because if you have leaky windows, leaky doors, or attached garages, might make air drift in a particular direction. You may not heating one and if it's heating one. Just wanted to know what happens.
Okay, so Hellgate, we have Skyroot, Schultz, Mauer.
Alright, so I'm Will Skyrood.
I'm Jake Mauer.
I'm Alex Schultz. And you might be wondering about him. That's the 3M filtrate, also known as Surnurmik Nirmal, which is pure clean in Hindi. So he comes all the way from Jaipur, the pink city of northern India, to teach us a little about the filtration capabilities of the 3M filtrate. All right. So we had some speculation. We had our question. We want to know how well these actually work. We heard a lot about it. The reason we wanted to do the PM 2.5 level is the company 3M gives a lot of stats about pollen and those levels. They give a 99.9% decrease in pollen, but they don't give anything for a 2.5 level. They give a lot of PM 10 levels. So we wanted to see that, that lower level. And so we hypothesized that Surnurmik Nirmal's filtration capabilities will significantly lower the average. And we wanted to discuss the average because we don't see a point, because of the unvariability, we don't see a point in looking at the peaks because those are going to be so different in all these different tests. It's uncontrolled. So we were going to look at the averages to see what it could actually lower. And kind of what we talked about earlier, that problem with the indoor air levels being so much higher than the outdoor, this is kind of an answer to that problem. So I'll hand it over to Jake.
I'm going to talk about the variables. First one being test time. We did 3 trials, 48 hours each, 24 hours without the filtrate, and then 24 hours with it. We used the same filter each time, Surnurmik Nirmal, and we used brand new filter paper at the beginning, and we use it for each trial. And then the location was, we put the filtrate as far away from the dust track as possible in each room. And there was a lot of uncontrolled variables, as Will said. That's why we took the averages. These could be traffic through the house, cooking, animals, windows open and closed. And I'm going to pass it to Will again.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the procedure, how we kind of set this up, and it has a lot to do with the variables. So consecutive tests, as Jake said, you're looking at 48-hour tests, and they're set up with no time in between, so it's right in a row, 2 24-hour tests. And the setup, a lot of what Jake said, it's going to be like the directions said, as far away in the room as possible. And the main thing is that the dust track in all the, or not the dust track, Surnurmik Nirmal was on his highest setting for all this, so it is pumping at its full capacity. All right, so the that's 24-hour test without the dust track, and then the with, or without the without Surnurmik Nirmal. The with is put on there, and that's run with it, as I said, at the highest setting. Those are both put in there for a comparison so that we can actually look at the averages of consecutive 48 hours and
Then we can look at the average drop and look at results, and for those results, I'm going to pass it to Alex.
All right, so as you can see in test 1, this was a house with a smoker and a pellet stove, and its average was 0.091 milligrams per meter cubed without Cerner Mick. Then with it lowered it down to 0.026 milligrams per meter cubed, so it had a 0.065 drop. Test 2 had a wood stove, and its average was 0.028 milligrams per meter cubed, and with it dropped it down to 0.002 milligrams per meter cubed with a 0.026 drop. Test 3 had natural gas heating, and it started out, it was relatively clean air with 0.004 milligrams per meter cubed, and then with the Cerner Mick Normal, it dropped it down to 0.001, so a 0.003 drop. On average, the pre-test had 0.041 milligrams per meter cubed, and with Cerner Mick, it had 0.009, so 0.031 drop. And then, so a percentage-wise, it dropped it by 22%. In conclusion, I'm sure this will make the guy from 3M happy. You should buy one of these things because they do work.
Any questions? Is the filtering, does that normally come with that air unit, or is this something special you put in that's not standard?
Yeah, I think the filter is a 3M product, a standard filter. We used the same filter. It was brand new to start, and it was the same filter used through all 3 tests.
And it usually doesn't come dressed like that. We just kind of did that to add some spice.
Yeah, the turbine's not included.
Well, the reason I asked you is the previous group used the same filter, the same unit, right? The same device. And I just wondered if you put a different filter in it, and that's what made the difference in your result.
No, that's just how it was when it was given to us by the university. It's the same filter system. So.
Was it that the last group was focusing more on spikes, and you guys were focusing more on the average that may have made your results?
Yeah, I think that helped a lot. As you see on test 3 with the low levels, there weren't many spikes in that. That was in more of a controlled environment. So that was kind of more, they were both really low levels, and even with no spikes on an already really low level, it was able to lower it even lower. And the other 2 tests had some spikes, but we just kind of disregarded those and pointed right to the average. So to try and get that actual drop that might, an overtime thing, you're going to have this running in your house over time, you're going to want the average to come down.
So we're going to jump over lap where they're doing last minute preparations on the project. So Whitefish High School air quality and Whitefish High School, Danzig, Hunt, please.
I'm Jason Hunt, and this is
Jake Danzig,
and we're from Whitefish High School, and we studied air quality in our school. The hypothesis of our project was that air quality will be better when filters are running. This is the procedure that we followed, as most of you also did when using the dust track, just set up, calibration, and actually using the dust track. And then in our case, we studied different rooms throughout our high school with and without filters for 24-hour periods of time. We also took a look at different size particles, PM 2.5 versus PM 10, which is a bigger size particle. This is a graph of the different rooms of our school, and The math room, right here, the third one over, had no filter. And the history room also didn't have a filter. Yeah. And the rest of them had filters running. The highest one was our science room because it's located in and around shop classes, metals classes, and woods classes. And it peaked at around 0.014, the average, this is the average, 0.014. And the EPA limit is 0.035, so it's still below the limit.
All right, so this is a comparison of that math room. This is with the filter. First, we ran a test with just PM 2.5. Then we ran a test with PM 10 because the teacher in that room was concerned with mold spores and other larger particles that would sometimes not be picked up by PM 2.5. The purple is the max, and the yellow is the average over 24 hours. So from that, it sees there's not that much of a difference. So this is when there is no filter in that same room. It's really hard to tell, but the PM 10 is actually somewhat higher than the PM 2.5 on the average. So there is a somewhat greater drop in PM 2.5, or not PM 2.5, but PM 10 in this room when the filter was running. So we believe it's possible that larger particles such as mold spore is a greater problem in our school, and specifically this room. This is just over time of that same room with the filter running. Again, it shows how PM10 is a greater problem. The PM10 also includes the lower number of PM 2.5 in its count because it's PM10 and down. But even taking that into account, there's still a greater problem with the PM10 than PM 2.5. So we also had problems gathering that much data. We only had several tests, not enough to have to average out all the variables, so that probably affected our numbers somewhat, made it somewhat inaccurate. But overall, the air quality was helped somewhat by the filters. I should mention that the filters that the teachers used was not the 3M Filtrete. It was filters they owned individually. I'm not sure what company it was. It was not 3M though. As data showed, the level throughout our school in all classrooms was below EPA limits, so it's not a problem in our school. And so I should also mention that this year in Whitefish, there was people wanted a bond to renovate the school. One of the reasons was because there was some concerns about air quality in the school being poor, being too high, PM 2.5 levels. The data gathered from our test suggests that it's not true, but obviously that's not conclusive because we only have 6 or 7 tests, so it's not definitive, but it suggests that air quality in our school is sufficient. So we'd also like to thank Tony Ward, the teachers in our school who helped us out, Plum Creek for the grant to buy our dust track, our teacher, and the University of Montana for putting this on. Questions?
You used the dust track ones for both 2.5?
Yeah, we did. We switched out to the PM10 filter. All right, thank you.
Okay, so next guy, air quality of Missoula.
All right, we're from Big Sky High School. I'm Simon Becker. This is Moses Ameza. Jake, I can't remember his last name. Sorry, Jake. And Shane. And the data we collected mostly in trafficked areas, pretty much around 5 o'clock, so we could get the most traffic. And then the other areas we compared them to were such as Deep Creek, Miller Creek, and Sawmill. So we wanted to get the heaviest trafficked areas compared to the least trafficked areas. So obviously we're going to believe that it's going to be significantly larger with the with the traffic flow. So with low traffic flow, low particle matter. And because of our location in the valley, and as everyone should know, globally, the global concern is the welfare of the air, and what are we going to do about it? And we just are supporting that we need to do something rather than nothing. And because of the inversion factor of our valley, cold air traps the pollution. As you guys should all know, that's not really relevant to our data. And here are some of our data points. In Snowball, there was close to 0, and then Mullen and Reserve, they were pretty significantly high. And there's another graph just shown in different form. And obviously the mountains are going to have less than the streets, but what we're here to do is just support that there needs to be something done about the emissions that we put out every day at ridiculously high amounts. And so the outside is one thing, normally we go out and we're like, yeah, I want to be outside, but if we keep going at it, then outside's not going to be such a relief as we used to rely on it to be.
All right, so what we found is that since there was little or no traffic up in the mountains, that there was a lot lower PM levels than in the city, and so our hypothesis supported our results, which is pretty self-explanatory. So there we go. Thank you.
Ride your bike. Hey, we have it right there.
Did you consider at all that elevation might be a factor testing in town and in a mountain region?
No, we did not.
If you're picking a place that you want to live without a smog in Missouri, you know at what point on the hill, how high you have to go on the hill to get out of most of the bad stuff.
You're talking about the
inversion smog layer, thick stuff.
Well, it changes like
temperature.
like completely.
So we didn't find a spot that is, but if you're in the mountains, you're pretty good at it. So that's like. Yeah.
What time of year did you do your sample?
It was mostly spring and mostly winter.
Our presentation is volatile organic compounds, distribution and location by Elias Pinkham and Ethan Whitehall. We're from Lapway High School and our biology teacher is Paul Smith. Our question was, what causes higher levels of trichoethylene, chlorobenzene, isopropylbenzene, and N-propylbenzene? And is the distribution of these chemicals based on location? And our hypothesis was, our location does not affect the levels of chemicals? And here's Eli.
During our project, we followed this procedure, which we obtained the air samplers from University of Montana in 2007. Then we identified the dates of sampling for the students to take home, which students and when. We then gave the samplers to the students so they can sample their own homes overnight for 12 hours. We sent the results, or the sample tubes, to University of Montana for analysis, and then received results to compare levels at different sample sites. We have 4 chemicals and 3 homes which we picked. The first one, which only first 2 homes had levels of trichloroethylene, and that number 2 had way higher levels, which was located in town, and 3, which was out of town, not near any major buildings or highways, which was my house. We have chlorobenzene, which only 1 house had high levels of outdoor, which was located next to a gas station. And isopropylbenzene, which all of them had similar amounts except for 1, which had no outdoor levels, and number 2, which had high indoor levels. And propylbenzene, which is kind of level with entirety, but had higher levels in different homes. Number 1 didn't have any indoor, and number 3 had high levels of outdoor. So we do, yeah. So in conclusion, we found that different levels of chemicals did appear higher in some locations rather than others. This does disprove our hypothesis, and we tried to figure out what caused most of these. Some did not return their questionnaires, which yeah.
Guys, I'm not a chemist. Why are those specific compounds important? What would I find?
Most of them are found in degreasers, which like stove cleaners, but we had many chemicals to choose from. We chose those 4 because most of the homes only had no or little amounts, or some even had higher amounts than like others, like put together. So yeah, most of them are just degreasers for cleaning.
Are they naturally occurring at all, or that explains?
No, none of them are naturally occurring. It's mostly just from household products for cleaning. Yeah. Yes.
Did you have a wood stove at your house?
Yeah.
You would have high levels of isopropyl benzene.
Yes, I had a wood stove. I was the only one that did. I think that used it. One of the first house, we don't believe that they had one.
Isopropyl benzene can be found in wood smoke. We've seen it from the pulp mill. So I was wondering if there was a wood stove around that might explain that particular occurrence.
Okay, great job. Okay, so I think we've done 9 presentations.
I'm Brooke Swenemson. I'm Emily Russell.
I'm Gary and Holy.
And we're from Hellgate High School, and we'll be presenting today on the effects of heaters on the levels of PM 2.5 in the home. What are we testing? I just said the effect of gas, electric, and pellet heaters on the level of PM 2.5 in the home. Combustion products are unvented kerosene, gas, space heaters, wood stoves, and fireplaces are a few sources of combustion products. And they release major pollutants such as carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, and particles. Pollutants with no dedicated outdoor air supply can be backdrafted from the chimney into the living space, causing high levels of particulate matter. So we decided to test this. Particles from heaters are released when fuels are incompletely burned, and they can lodge in the lungs and irritate or damage lung tissue. Cancer-causing pollutants can attach to these particles be inhaled and get lodged in the lung. I will now pass it over to Emily to talk about our hypothesis.
Okay, so our hypothesis was that a gas heating system would have a higher level of PM 2.5 than an electric heating system, and we used the pellet stove as kind of something to show that heating sources where you have to refuel are definitely going to be higher than forced air heating systems. So other than setting up the dust track as close to a heating source as possible, we had other variables that we asked our participants to do. They were make sure that your doors are closed, keep the constant temperature at like 70 degrees, no pets, and we also used non-smoking residences. So to explain some of our data, this is our pellet stove graph. And as you can tell, we had really huge spikes, which you saw at the beginning with the wood stove. A pellet stove is basically like a wood stove. You have to refuel it. And this graph is actually half its original size. That actually went up to 0.062 is the highest spike, which is this closest one. And the spikes are due to the opening and closing of the door because you have to refuel the stove. And this is also how they cooked, so that could be also factored into these spikes. So the second highest PM 2.5 level went to the electric heater, and this is actually a surprise to us because we thought it would be the gas heater, which it wasn't. But when it peaks, it kind of plateaus. So we thought this could be the point when the heater gets to the appropriate temperature and it keeps forcing out air so that the house stays at that temperature. And then it also peaks really high right there, and that was on the data that was logged. It was when they were starting to cook dinner. And then last but not least is our gas heater, and it had the lowest PM 2.5, which this goes against our hypothesis. It proves our hypothesis wrong, and it shows that we thought it would be higher because the heater has to burn the gas to heat the house. And we thought that would let off more PM 2.5. So now I'm going to let Gary do the conclusion.
Okay, so now I want to talk about how you can reduce your exposure to the particles that are emitted by your heaters in your home. So let's take a look. Okay, so I know taking care of your heaters isn't something exactly on the top of your mind when you get home, but there are certain things you want to look for, and there are things you can do to prevent health effects, negative health effects from heaters. So one thing would be to take special precautions when operating fuel-burning unvented space heaters, especially unvented heaters. A visual sign would be a persistent yellow tip flame in your heater. That's generally an indication that there's a maladjustment, and it's a sign that there's an increased pollution emission from your heater. Also, you can install and use exhaust fans over gas stoves and ranges, and keep burners properly adjusted. Also, if you have a wood stove, try to keep those emissions to a minimum. Doors should be tight-fitting in your house to kind of close off the airflow that may spread around those harmful particles. Also, use aged or cured wood to burn in your heaters. Do not use pressure-treated wood to burn because what they do is they use chemicals to pressure treat these. Have your central handling systems, including flues, furnaces, chimneys, inspected annually, and properly repair any damaged parts that you see. And so our conclusion didn't back up our hypothesis. Our hypothesis was incorrect. We learned that, and that concludes our presentation. I'd like to thank the judges and the audience for listening, and that's it.
Any questions? Yes?
Why did you think that the gas stoves were going to have higher particulates?
Since it was burning a live flame rather than having the electric source, we figured that it would cause higher levels of particulate matter.
So, I guess I'm questioning where the pellet stove came into your experimental design.
We were originally going to look at that as well, but we only had one pellet stove, of information, so we didn't think that was conclusive enough to add it completely. So we just use it as a variable and just to see the difference.
What's in, I'm asking you seriously, what's in natural gas? Do you know what it's made up of?
No, I'm sorry, I cannot answer that.
Yeah. It's made up of methane, about probably 90% methane, and then a little bit of ethane. Those aren't really big enough molecules to typically make particulates like the cellulose molecules in wood would be. So I normally wouldn't think of furnaces being necessarily a source of particulates. The forced air distribution of it certainly can distribute particulates from other sources as well. That may be why your hypothesis didn't hold up.
Well, thank you. Yes?
What kind of heat is the electric heat? Is that just electric baseboard heating, or you run current through?
Yes, I do believe so.
Yeah.
I do believe so.
You know why that resulted in more?
No, we did not have a long enough time to study to figure it out. Thank you. So, thanks.
So Corvallis is up next. And I think that brings up an important point with these presentations. It's our hope that you guys will, find some research, identify a question, collect the data to support whether or not your research pans out. But if it is high, figure out ways of reducing the levels of pollution within your home. So it's educating yourself, not only educating yourself, but also your family. So next presentation is these guys from Corvallis High School, right? Yep.
All right. My name is Jake Sangster. This is Nathan DeBose. We're from Corvallis High School, and our teacher is Mr. Hamill. Our question was, Our question was, would dust masks decrease the level of PM 2.5 particles in the air? Our hypothesis was that the dust masks would decrease the amount of PM 2.5 that was in the air. Our procedure, we sampled 4 locations throughout our school for 10 minutes each without the dust mask, or without the air track system hooked to this little apparatus that we connected, and we put a dust mask on it, and then we sampled the same locations for the same amount of time with the apparatus with the dust mask. This is the picture, this is the dust tract, and then a tube ran into a jar with the dust mask right on top of it. The masks we used were, it was a lightweight mask that was expertly designed for comfortable protection against air pollutants, dust, and powders. They're made from 100% polyester and are fiberglass free. They're ideal for dusty work areas, yard, garden, and farm work. And what we thought was funny was the manufacturers suggest that these should not be used for particulate matter protection, even though our experiment worked. We thought that kind of ironic. For liability reasons. These were the 4 areas that we tested: our gym, our art room, our shop room, which consists of woodwork and welding, and then our kitchen.
Okay, these were our results in the 4 areas without the mask being attached to the dust track. As you can see that the shop was the highest, then the art room, then the kitchen, and then the gym, which is very healthy. And this one is the same places 10 minutes after, but with the dust mask attached to the dust tract. This is just an overlap of the 2 graphs, so you can see the drop. Like this is the shop room, and it was up here without, and then it dropped down to this one, And this is the art room, and obviously it can drop too, and so did the kitchen. The gym was really, really healthy to begin with, and there wasn't very much of a drop in that. We think that's just because there's not very much there. All right, this is just that same graph so you can look at it as we talk about it. The chart proves that using, oh, that's a little fast. Okay, this chart proves that using the dust mask does in fact reduce the amount of PM.25 particles. As seen on the chart to the left, in most cases it cut it in half. Anything over 35 micrograms per cubic meter is considered unhealthy by the Environmental Protection Agency. And as you can see, the woods room, or the shop room, sorry, was over that to begin with. But then once we put on the mask, then it went from like quite a bit above it to below it, which therefore made it healthier. Our conclusion was that in most cases the dust mask does reduce it, the amount of PM.25 particles by 50%. Applications, we thought that like people with respiratory problems that live in like urban areas or like in Missoula during like inversions and stuff like that, they could use these masks and that would help them with the air quality. Sensitive groups that have bad breathing problems and stuff could use it during like times like the wildfire in that August that we saw, like when they really spike. And anybody working like in our shops room at the school or something like that, they could use them during like, you know, like woodworks and stuff to help improve it. We think that this might even like reduce like asthma if you like used it a lot when you're in these areas. We'd like to thank our judges, our audience, and the University of Montana. We're open for questions.
Did you guys consider using different kinds of masks rather than just the one type to see how different ones would look?
If we had more time, we might have done that like on our next one, but for this time we just tried this kind.
You guys gonna be wearing masks around school now?
No, we're just thinking like areas like in the shop when we know it's really bad. And we're more talking to like people who have like asthma or something like that, that they know they need to like look out for this kind of stuff.
Because the shop room was really bad, and so we just thought maybe instead of, you know how they use like welding masks or stuff, maybe the woodworkers could use maybe dust masks to decrease the airflow.
Did you show these results to the shop teacher?
We haven't yet. He said he didn't want to see them.
How did you attach the mask to the top of the glass?
Actually have the mask. It's just got a little tiny like band thing, and we just tied it to the bottom and tied a little knot right there. There was like a little part where the thing would leak through the air, but we like put them on our face, and like right underneath your chin, air does leak through. So we thought that would make it more exact.
That was exactly my question. Usually when I put those on, they don't form right exactly to my face, and I wondered if you kind of simulate that leakage.
Yeah, if you would have seen.
Stuck it right on top of the jar, and then the tube ran under.
Yeah. Nope. If you'd see our picture, there is little holes where the tube actually goes through that does open it up so air can get into the jar. All right, thank you.